All right, everyone, settle down, settle down. It's time for another lesson with Mr. McLaughlin's distance learning. All right, so last time we talked about how the Renaissance ideas were moving out of Italy and into the northern part of Europe. Well, we see all those ideas, we see all those artists and those writers, and one revolutionary thing that we discussed last time was the printing press, or movable type created by Johann Gutenberg. Yeah, we are going to print everything. It's going to be so great and fun. Who's ready? Well, there was one guy who was super ready, and his name was Martin Luther. So today we're going to talk about two things that concern ourselves with the Renaissance and social and religious changes. The first thing we're going to talk about are problems that are seen within the Catholic Church, and the next thing we're going to talk about is our man, Martin Luther. Before I go any further, Martin Luther is not Martin Luther King Jr. They are very separate people in many different ways. I mean, they wanted change, but, we're going to be talking about Martin Luther. So, what are some of these problems that are seen in the Catholic Church? Well, first of all, you have to know that the Pope is living in Italy, where he does today, right? Vatican City is in the Italian peninsula. Well, he was competing with the Italian princes for control over land. So the Pope waged a war against Italian princes over control of the papal states, or the land area where the Pope lived. Let me say that again. The Pope, the highest religious official in the Catholic Church, went to war with people in control of land. I feel like that violates at least a few of the 10 Commandments. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure thou shalt not kill is pretty far up there. And this is the Pope we're talking about. So, what else is going on? Well, in order to make money and pay for all the lavish things that the Pope wants, the Church starts selling things called indulgences. Does anyone know what an indulgence is? Yes, you do indulge on dog treats a lot, but we're talking about a different type of indulgence. An indulgence in the religious term means you pay money in order for your soul or someone else's soul to have a reduced time in purgatory. So basically what the Catholic Church was saying is, are you worried about your sins? Are you worried about not being able to get to heaven on time? Well, guess what? We're going to sell you a piece of paper that guarantees you will not go to purgatory, or your purgatory sentence will be lessened. They're selling a piece of paper for something that happens after you die. There's a problem here, right? That's like if I told you I was going to sell you a house, but actually I'm just going to write on a piece of paper, you own a house, and then you have to give me $1 million. What did you really buy? $1 million piece of paper. And that's what the Church is doing. They're selling money, they're selling paper for money for a false promise, or a potentially false promise, something that they can't particularly prove. So now there's one guy that's roaming around who is observing all these problems. And his name, like I said before, was Martin Luther. Martin Luther was a German monk who was trained to be a higher official in the Catholic Church. In his training, though, he discovered that there were a lot of issues or problems with the way the Catholic Church was conducting themselves, one of which, indulgences. So he would take record of all these things that he felt were wrong with the Catholic Church, and he would periodically write them down. The story goes that he accumulated 95 problems, this close to Jay-Z, but he only had 95 problems. He wrote them all down, and in the city of Wittenberg, he went to the door of the church and he nailed all his issues to the door. We call that the 95 Thesis. Now, we don't know if he actually went to nail them to the door, but what we do know is that those ideas were printed in pamphlets and spread throughout Europe. This is what we're talking about. Ideas are spreading. Now, instead of just Martin Luther in the town of Wittenberg being the crazy old monk, crazy young monk, spewing all his ideas, he can reach a farther audience. And maybe other people have been noticing this, but didn't have the opportunity to speak up. Or maybe they thought, oh no, this is just crazy. But now he prints it, and he sends it all out. So, in 1517, he starts this revolt, right? And word spreads quickly. And the Catholic Church gets in contact with him and says, listen, Marty, you can't be doing that stuff, especially as a monk. And he's like, whatever, man. I'll do what I want. So they said, okay, here's the deal. We're going to have a meeting at this place called the Diet of Worms. Not worms, worms. So they say, Martin, come to this meeting, we'll talk this out. So Martin goes to the meeting at the Diet of Worms, and they say to him, you wrote a lot of blasphemous stuff. You wrote a lot of things that go against our teachings. What do you have to say for it? And Martin Luther said, yeah, I did it. I wrote it all. And I don't find any reason why this is untrue. And the Catholic Church says, well, if you still want to be associated with us, you're going to have to recant what you said. Who here knows what recant means? Anybody? No one? Yes, go ahead. No, I don't. It's definitely not it. You probably shouldn't say that. A recant means to take things back that you've once said. To basically disprove yourself. So if I said that the greatest reality TV show in the world is Love Island, right? That's my opinion. If someone came up to me and says, hey, you got to recant that because that's not true. If I recant, I'm going against my beliefs, right? So now Martin Luther is being told to go against his beliefs and his teachings. And he stands up in front of them and he says, listen, I'm not taking back anything. You guys can shove it. And they're like, whoa! So he goes nuts. He leaves. They excommunicate Martin Luther from the church. So he continues to spread his ideas and he gathers a following. But here's the thing. He says, listen, we want to do this peacefully. Here are my observations. 1, we shouldn't sell indulgences. Those are bad. 2, the only source of religious truth comes from the Bible, not from priests who are, telling you one thing that goes against what it says in the Bible, not from, the bishop who might say, oh, I've got special powers, I can heal you. No, if it's not in the Bible, it's not true. So Martin Luther goes and preaches all of these things. A lot of people believe him. It spreads so far to many peasants that they start a revolt. And he goes, whoa. I don't want any part of this. No, thank you. So now the church has 2 problems. They got Martin Luther spreading his ideas, and they have violent revolts breaking out across Germany. So finally the Pope says in 1555, this is what we're going to do. If you are a German prince and you want to go with Luther, go ahead. You can go believe in what Luther's saying. But you are excommunicated. You can never come back to the Catholic Church. If, you want to recant all those crazy things that you've been learning from Luther, you can come back. No harm, no foul. So what happened was a lot of the southernmost parts of Germany went back to the Pope, and northern parts of Germany went with Luther. And we see that spread throughout Europe. We have a lot of northern parts of Europe that are going towards this Protestant or Lutheran teaching, and the southern part of Europe remaining with the Catholic Church. So in 1555, there's something called the Peace of Augsburg, and that's where the Pope says, all right, enough's enough. Now it's time for Mr. McLaughlin's Fun Fact of the Day! Today's fun fact comes from 1644. Now, I started looking this up, and there are a few dates that bounce around, and we're not really sure when this happened, but allegedly, in 1644, Oliver Cromwell, who was basically in charge of protecting the United Kingdom, Scotland, England, Ireland, different parts of the UK, from invasion, from persecution, even though he was doing a lot of the persecuting himself. But he decided, listen, I'm super religious, I love the Catholic faith. You know what's not cool? Paganism. So we want to wipe out all paganism and pagan traditions whatsoever. So he put a ban on eating pie how does that relate to paganism? Well, if you look back at some of the traditions for right around Christmas time specifically, minced meat pie was very famous. But this came from the pagan tradition of consuming that food. And Oliver Cromwell felt that this was a form of pagan pleasure by eating minced meat pies. And this ban on pies lasted for 16 years. No pies in the UK for 16 years? Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm alive today. Well, that's it for today's lesson. Next time we're going to talk about more of this spread of going against the Catholic Church and how the Catholic Church tries to adjust and maintain its control in Europe. Always remember, stay safe, stay healthy, and social distance.